Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending today's webcast on Map 3D 2009 Industry Toolkits. And today we'll specifically be looking at the electrical toolkit, the data model that comes with that toolkit, and the industry symbols, and how you can use those to um, classify existing drawing elements and also create new drawing elements to fit into this data standard. So today's agenda. We'll talk a little bit about Map 3D. We'll have a quick overview. We'll do a toolkit overview as well, talk about what the toolkits consist of and how to use those, where you can get the toolkits, installing the toolkits. It's not a traditional install. You might be thinking of like an install shield install. It's not that traditional type of install. It's more of an unzip and then put the files where you need them process. We'll take a look at the supporting files that come with the toolkits. So there's a good amount of documentation as well as some videos that help you get up to speed very quickly on how to use the toolkits. And then finally we'll do some hands-on, some demo using the electrical toolkit in a drawing to not only classify existing objects, but to create new classified objects as well. So a quick Map 3D overview. MAP is the leading engineering platform for creating and managing spatial data. Those of you that are familiar with MAP know that typically AutoCAD has been very good at creating CAD-like data, but MAP takes it a step further and allows you to easily manage not only your CAD data, but also your spatial data, any of that GIS data you might have. So the benefits of that, you get to leverage this CAD-trained workforce that you've got to do more geospatial type work, like analysis on large geospatial files, answering questions that are typically very hard to answer in the CAD world can be easily answered when you start to think about GIS and analysis. This also gives you the ability to create better designs because you can integrate that spatial data that's out there to get a better design from the beginning, making better decisions as you go. And then also improving sharing between the engineering and other departments. So that's the benefit of Map 3D. What's new in 2009? Faster and better data creation and editing. There's been some user interface enhancements, more workflow-driven enhancements. When you start to look at the menu structures, they aren't 2 and 3 menus deep. So it's been put together in a more logical way. The 2009 products from Autodesk are also Citrix ready, so that you can now use that Citrix option to deploy rather than the traditional network deployment or standalone installation. And then of course you've got the industry toolkits, and we're going to talk more extensively about those here in a moment. So what are the industry toolkits? There are 3 industry toolkits. There's a water industry, a wastewater industry, and an electric industry. And today, again, we're going to focus on the electric industry toolkit when we get into the hands-on and the installation and using of toolkits. These toolkits consist of a data model, which is a set of industry objects with the real-world attributes built in. You'll see when we get into this that the data model is quite extensive. There's a set of pre-configured industry symbols in the form of blocks that can be used, but they can also easily be manipulated to fit standards that you might need to adhere to. There's good user documentation as well as instructional videos that come with each toolkit. Again, these help to get you up to speed quickly. So the data model. It provides an out-of-the-box set of industry objects and attribute data. Here you get a screenshot of that data model. You can see all the objects, and then just a snapshot of some of that attribute data that corresponds to each object. And we'll get a good look at that in the hands-on. So the benefit here, you can define and apply a data standardization, and it's also easy to integrate data that you might get from an outside contractor or an outside source, or data that might already exist before you start to use these toolkits. It's very easy to use this object classification to classify these objects. Another component of the industry toolkits is the pre-configured industry symbols. So this is an extensive set of blocks that fit into the classifications, one for water, one for wastewater, and again one for electric. And each symbol is tied to an object class, and it's very easy again to manipulate these symbols to adhere to your standards. The benefit here, consistency throughout your drawing and maps. The toolkit also comes with a pre-configured drawing template as well as an XML file, and that XML file is the data model built in an object classification form. These allow you to define and apply standards, display, as well as attribute very easily. Each toolkit also comes with an extensive set of documentation. There's a user's guide with each toolkit, workflows that will give you a typical workflow, for instance, classifying existing objects or creating new objects with classification. Each toolkit comes with a data model, which we've seen, as well as instructional videos, and I'll show you all those when we start to put together this toolkit. All this helps you get up to speed very quickly. So, benefits for the utility industry. Well, you've got improved drafting productivity for new and experienced staff. Very easy, again, to use that CAD-trained workforce to use these new classifications, and then these classified objects go very easily into the GIS form. It gives you the ability to define and apply data standardization and intelligence into the drafting process. So as opposed to just drafting, for instance, a line on a particular layer, and that layer denoting that it might be an overhead power line or something, you actually now with the industry toolkit can actually draft that overhead power line as an overhead power line. It drafts on the correct layer with the correct object. It might be line, it might be polyline. And it also has a comprehensive set of real-world attributes that define that line as an overhead power line. It's very easy to integrate this data model and take external contractor or other departments' drawings and classify them to meet these standards. And it also makes it much easier for the engineering CAD department to prepare their data to go into the GIS system. And we'll see all that in the hands-on. Benefits for engineering firms. You get reduced drafting times and expenditures on projects. You get to gain productivity by enabling your clients to easily integrate these CAD standards into their system, because you can share this data model with anybody in that XML format and the DWT. So your outside contractors can now begin to work in this data model that you've adhered to. And so when you share drawings back and forth with these outside contractors, it's very easy to push data back and forth, and then again into the GIS mapping system. So let's do some hands-on here. Let's jump out. So I've got the first thing we should do is let's talk about how to put the industry toolkit together. The way it works is, for those of you on subscription, these industry toolkits are free, the water, the wastewater, and the electric toolkit. So you go through your subscription site, Autodesk subscription site, and you're able to download the industry toolkit. And when you download it, it comes in the form of a self-extracting zip file for all intents and purposes. So let's go ahead and fire this off and see what we get. So it's asking us for a location to unzip this file to, and the default location it chooses is the C drive, program files. Under Autodesk, it's going to build an industry kits folder, and that's where it wants to unzip this to. So let's go ahead and let it unzip to that location. So 14 files come. This is just the electric industry toolkit, so we've got 14 files there. Let's jump out and take a look at what that consists of. So under program files, Autodesk, industry kits. Here are the files that come with this particular industry kit. And this, again, is the Electric Industry Toolkit. So you can see we've got a host of documentation in the form of PDFs. So here are some workflow PDFs, and the title on these give a pretty good idea. Let's just pop one open. So it's using object classification in a new drawing. This is what that PDF looks like. So it kind of gives you a logical workflow of how to use this particular toolkit in a new drawing. And there are others here: object classifications in existing drawings, object classification with feature data, so when you start to work through FDO connections, and then using imported data. There are also a host of videos here that accentuate some of these topics and give you a video look at this in an AVI format, or a self-playing executable here. And then finally, you've got the user's guide, pretty extensive user's guide for this toolkit. Talks about getting started, talks about object classification, creating new objects. It has links to play these videos in the appropriate places. So a pretty comprehensive set of documentation. We're not going to go into the documentation too much. One other thing I do want to show you is this infrastructure library. This also is a very comprehensive look at the data model. So just scroll down the list here. So you get a summary of object classes, and then with each object class comes a long set, or a lot of attributes. And so you get the attribute, the data name, the data type, and a description of what that attribute is to hold. So again, very comprehensive data model for these toolkits. So to put these toolkits together, really what you need to work with this toolkit inside of Map3D is you need the drawing template and you need the XML file. This XML file is that data model, and it's built as an object classification, for those of you familiar with object classifications. So there are several ways to do this. One way to do this would be to take this DWT and move it out to where you expect to find all your drawing templates, so that when you start a new drawing through Map3D, that drawing template is there. So let me do that. I'm just going to make a copy of this, and I'm going to browse out to where my drawing templates are. And if this looks a little funny to some of you, it's because this is Vista, so paths are a little bit different. Let's see, Autodesk, working in Map3D. Here in my template folder, this is where I expect to find all my drawing templates, so I will just paste it here. Electric Toolkit DWT. It will now be available, easily available to me when I create a new drawing. So let's see how that works. So here, this is Map3D. I'll just go ahead and create a new drawing. It takes me right to my template location, and there it is, right in the list, Electric Toolkit DWT. I can open that up. And again, this drawing template is pre-configured for this particular electric data model. So if I look at my layers property manager, I've got all the layers that I expect for this electric toolkit, again used by the classifications. I've also got a list of blocks and annotation templates used by this particular toolkit. One thing I see right here is that the object classes didn't automatically hook up this first round. That's okay. I can attach the definition file, and I know that definition file is path. It's in program files where we unzipped to. Autodesk, industry kits. There's my electric toolkit XML. So there is my object classification file, again via XML. So I've got the ability now to use all of these object classes in the data model behind those to build out a drawing, and this drawing now adheres to this standard. So let's go ahead and open a drawing that's already got some data in it. and we can start to see how this object classification is going to work. So here's a particular drawing. We can pretend that this drawing came from an outside source. It doesn't have any object classification on it yet. So for instance, if I zoom up on one of these particular power lines, it's on a layer called cables. Hard to tell if that's an underground or an overhead power line. Take a look at its properties. Let's see. It does have some object data on it to define some things, but it's not classified as part of our data model here. It's using the wrong line type. It's on the correct layer. So what we can do is we can use this data model over here to classify this particular object. So let's do that. So let me find my, here we go, overhead conductor. That's my overhead power line. So I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to choose to classify an object. Okay, I want to classify, for instance, missed something there. Let's try that again. Classify objects. Okay. Seems to be a disconnect here. Oh. I know what I did. I moved this drawing after I attached the definition file, so let me just find that real quick. There we go. That should clear that up. Classify an object. There we go. So now it's allowing me to pick objects that I want to classify as an overhead conductor. So let's just start with that power line. You'll notice right away that it changed color, it changed line type, and that's because it's been put on the correct layer. It now exists on an electrical overhead conductor layer. Let's see what else we get here. Back to the properties. Now under object class, I have this data model that I can now fill out. So all these attributes, these real world attributes, I get for free as part of this data model, and I can start to define those. So maybe this is a single phase overhead conductor. It's on circuit 1, 2, 3. Installer, startup, maybe the date installation. I know it was installed on 12/5/1975. So now these attributes are tracked now with these objects. And again, it makes it very easy when you want to move into that GIS realm to take these classified objects and push them into a shapefile or an SDF file or an Oracle database. And all this attribution goes with it. So let's see what else. We've got, looks like we've got some power poles here. Let's go ahead and classify these objects to match our criteria for a power pole. And here's our pole. So I'll classify some existing objects. Let's get a few of these here. So there, those have been now classified as power pole. You'll notice that the colors changed. They exist on our electrical pole. Properties, also a comprehensive data model, a set of attributes to define that power pole. What if this power pole block that we're using here doesn't necessarily meet, or is not the power pole block that we want to use? So what we can do is we can easily use the express tools. Under blocks, we can replace block with another block. So let's pick the block to be replaced. Let's say we want to replace this block, and we want to use the block defined. Isn't it? So I want to replace pole with the block called, I believe it's called D pole. I'm scrolling past it here. There it is. D pole. So you'll notice now that the block symbol has changed again to meet my specific criteria. Still part of the data model. If I take a look at its properties, I still have that object class. So we see how easy it is to classify existing objects. What if we want to create some new objects? Let's say we've got this power pole here, and this is a meter over here, I believe. Quick look, yep, it's on the meter layer. So we can do things like classify this existing object as a meter, but we know how to classify existing objects. What if we want to create a conductor, overhead conductor from this power pole to this meter? So let's see how we can do that. So again, we'll use our overhead conductor, and in this case we'll create a classified object. We want to start here, and we want to end at the node of this meter. So there is a new overhead conductor. You'll notice that we didn't have to worry about what layer was set current. We didn't have to worry about that we were starting the polyline command instead of the line command. Also, if we take a look at its properties, again, it's got that object classification that comes with it, so we don't have to do any of that. Excuse me. That all comes for free when we use this data model. So let me change my user privileges in Map. Log in as super user. This will allow us to take a look at the behind the scenes of what these object classes consist of. So we've been working with overhead conductors, so let's take a look at the properties of that. So first we'll see that overhead conductor can be applied to any AC/dB curve. That means any line entity in CAD can be classified as an overhead conductor. Under the properties of this tab, this is where we specify the layer, so the overhead conductor layer has been specified, as well as all of these real-world attributes. This is why we get those when we classify objects and create new objects. And then finally on the class settings tab, we've chosen the create method to create a line, so that's why we created this. That's how we were able to create this line while creating a new classified object. So really, this object classification is just a set of standards put together to mimic these real-world objects, to define these real-world objects. What else comes with this? So we have the ability to classify multiple objects. Instead of doing just one at a time, we'll go ahead and pick multiple power lines, for instance, and have them all classified. And along with this object classification, this data model, comes the ability to build annotation from those objects. So let's see here. Let me see my annotation. Let me get my annotation toolbar up here to make it a little easier to do this. Let's define an annotation template. This will allow us to look at all the annotation templates that exist. So, for each of these object classes in the data model, we've built an annotation template as well. That annotation template allows us to use what's in our real-world attributes to build labels. So we've been working with overhead conductor. I'm just going to take a quick look at its contents. So for overhead conductor, we're labeling, in this case, using circuit and nominal voltage. So let me jump out of here. And for this, let's do it on this particular line here. Jump into the properties. So again, we're using voltage. So let's say our voltage is 12.5 kilovolts. And please keep in mind that I'm absolutely guessing at these values. They may not make any sense at all. So voltage, and we're also using, let's see, what can I find it here? Oh, it was not voltage, it was nominal voltage, I'm sorry. can't remember the other, so we'll just go with voltage. So that keeps zeroing out. That's why. It's an integer only field, so it's not taking the string characters of the KB. So some of those things like that you need to be careful of. So let's see what we get. So we've applied a nominal voltage here, so we can now use that for this particular overhead conductor and build a label. So let's see, we want to insert some annotation. We want to insert the overhead conductor, this line, and I could have made that text a little bit larger. There we get a label from that, and that label is dynamic in the fact that if we come in here to our properties and we change that, we just have to update that overhead conductor. I didn't hit update, I hit refresh. Update the overhead conductor. There we go. So that value has been updated to match what we're tracking in our real-world attributes for that particular line. So we've seen how we can classify objects, we've seen how to put the object classification together. We can create new objects, we can classify existing, we can manipulate the block. Let's see what else we can do here. Well, I think that's about it as far as the hands-on demo. So I'm going to go ahead and open the lines for discussion. Or entertain any questions or any discussion about this toolkit, excuse me, as well as the other toolkits, the water and the wastewater. So everybody out there can hear me? I'm not hearing anybody talk back. I should be unmuting the lines, but it's not. Appears to be a problem here with the phone and the ability to unmute you guys. *5 is supposed to do it, but it's not. So if you guys on your phone, if you do have a question, go ahead and press the star and then the 6 key, and you will be able to, you should be able to unmute yourselves. So any questions out there?